Greetings, fellow travelers, earthlings, people of the spiritual realm who are interested in growing themselves and becoming even more amazing beings in this planet. Well, at least I believe that's who you are, because that's why you keep showing up. And today we're going to talk about a whole interesting new topic around how to make that happen even more. My name is David McLeod. I'm coming to you from Belmont, California, and my good buddy, co-host, and fellow Soul Talk guy, Tommy Stoffel, is from someplace else. Hey, good morning, Tommy.
Hey, David. I thought you were Rod Sterling there for a minute, the way you were opening that one up. Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
Yeah, my name's Tommy, and as David and I do every week, and we've been doing for a couple of years now, we're coming to you live from somewhere in our home or someplace on the world, talking to you about things that matter, talking about things that'll help you make your life better little by little, to help you master your life, which is something that a lot of us aren't taught how to do in the normal educational systems and upbringing that we go through. So yeah, David, thanks. And welcome to you too, brother. And today we're talking, this topic is a little funny. It's like resolve to resolve. And what we're talking about here is this need to maybe constantly revisit ourselves and check in and make sure that we're continuing doing the work, that we're continuing uncovering the things that we want to uncover, becoming aware of the areas and items in ourselves that we want to become aware of and then transform and change. So that's kind of the gist behind that funky little title there.
exactly. And, just as a question to put out there, now I know this is true for me. I have seen it many times in my life where the same sort of pattern seems to show up repeatedly. And maybe I don't notice it the first few times, and then all of a sudden I have this thing, why the hell does this keep happening to me? What is going on? And I don't know, maybe you've had that experience too, Tommy. Is that true for you?
David, of course it's true for me. It's true for everybody, right? We have that friend that keeps showing up, although they seem to have a different name and a different face, but they seem to push the same button. They seem to have that same attitude towards me, or I'm taking them in a certain way. And that's what we're talking about, these repeating situations, or the same boss keeps showing up in my life, or the same type of job keeps showing up in my life. There are small things and then there are big things. And when you catch the repetitive nature of this, it's time to take notice and go, okay, why is this happening again?
Yeah, that's right. And not only the same boss or the same job situation, but even if you happen to have many relationships with people, the same kinds of relationships start showing up. The people that show up in my life, now it isn't true much anymore, but it sure was true when I was younger. They all seem to be really good at telling me who I was, what I wanted and needed, how I could fix myself, all that kind of stuff. And I know where that came from. I really do. Now that I've done my personal growth work, I know where that came from. But at the time that it was happening, I'll tell you, it was irritating as hell. I didn't like people telling me stuff about me, even though on some level, I invited them into my life.
Yeah, invited them in. That's a tough one to swallow. That's a tough pill to swallow, right? I didn't do this. I didn't bring this on. I changed jobs to get away from that person. And yet that person shows up again, or that partner shows up again, or that person I'm dating shows up again, right? These patterns. Yeah, do we invite it? Yeah, we invite it in a way that we attract it. And we can get in here really quickly about the law of attraction and energy, because everything we do is energy. And if we're walking around in this kind of a victim mode, or this, I need help mode, or something, some mode, some kind of form of energy that we're kind of carrying around with us, well, then we're attracting that into our lives, and we're attracting situations, we're attracting people, we're attracting events and activities and stuff. So it's all tied in with karma, but it's all about that. Yeah, we're kind of asking for it. Like, damn, what do you mean I asked for it?
Well, and this is an important thing, Tommy, because we may not be asking for it in a conscious way. That is to say, I'm not praying to the universe for this sort of thing to be happening in my life. But here's what happens. Each of us has our own belief systems. And very often those beliefs are somewhat disempowering beliefs. I carry around a bunch of disempowering beliefs. I might have a belief that I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not this enough or that enough. Or maybe I'll have a belief that the world is unsafe and I have to rely on someone else to take care of me and all this kind of stuff. I may not be consciously aware of those beliefs. That is to say, if I sit and think about it for a minute, I might notice that chatter in my head. But if I'm, too busy running around trying to run my life, I may not hear those things in my head. So consequently, I don't know that I'm repeating that pattern in my head. And it's that pattern, the belief that I have about myself inside, the one that I'm maybe not completely aware of, it's that pattern that I think is what's attracting stuff into our lives. So if we want to change what's coming into our lives, we have to raise awareness. We have to increase our awareness about what's going on inside us, about the beliefs that we're carrying around, and about the way we're showing up. And when we do that, then we can start shifting and changing what shows up in our life.
Yeah, beautifully spoken, man. It's about what's inside of us. And there's we always use this term, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? Which is a lie, which means that if I can go over there, it'll be better. Because I'm blaming, what's going on right now, I'm blaming this situation. But if I go over there and I change my situation, things will be better on the other side of that fence. But the truth is, the grass is only greener on the inside. You've got to go do the work on the inside. Otherwise, you're still attracting the same junk that you were attracting over there. Now you're new job, new boss, new whatever, you're going to attract the same junk. You're going to attract the same, it's not old junk. You're going to attract the same energy and the same lessons and the same opportunities to grow in this new place too.
Yeah. So, and you know what? I'm glad you pointed out that it isn't all junk. As a matter of fact, when I look at all the things that have happened to me in my life, even though at the time that they were happening, I wasn't very happy about it, I realize now that they all happened for a real powerful purpose, to help me grow and evolve into the person that I've become today, and hopefully into the person that I'm going to become even more of tomorrow. So it isn't junk, although it may seem like it at the time. And that's really, really important. And so we have to learn to welcome the junk. Maybe that's a topic for another episode. Welcome the junk. Anyway, so you know what I'm saying? I think you probably agree with that already, but I just wanted to put that out there for the benefit of the people who listen to this.
Yeah, we need to welcome the junk as something that I've asked for, something I need to learn, something I need to overcome, something I need to drop, let go of, or embrace more of. There's something there that I've never become aware of that I need to do something about. And until you do, that situation is going to keep repeating itself. It just is. You're going to keep getting whacked upside the head with a 2x4 until you learn how to duck, or how to stop the 2x4, or how to turn the 2x4 into something else. So this is the whole thing about this resolving to resolve. We have to keep looking at the same problems that are coming up and up again and figure out how to solve them. So maybe, David, we start talking about how do we find these problems? What do we do when something comes up? I loved your diagram, your picture, right, of the detective. What's the detective out there doing?
Well, he's looking for clues. Apparently, he's trying to solve a mystery, and in order to solve the mystery, he has to look for clues. Well, that's the same for you and me, Tommy. If we wonder, the mystery is, why does this keep happening to me? Then in order for us to find answers to that, we have to start looking for clues. And in looking for clues, that means we have to take a close look at every aspect of our life. We have to follow all the footprints that we have created so far and trace them back and say, how did I create this? If we can take responsibility for our own lives by recognizing that whatever's happening in my life is my creation and my responsibility, then we can look for how we created what we've got right now. And then we can decide what we want to do about it. So it's a very conscious and deliberate practice of raising awareness, of becoming aware of all of the things that are going on. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, raising awareness, taking responsibility, right? No more point and blame and fault out there, but taking responsibility inside. And then doing what we're talking about, talked about last night a little bit, you and I, about acceptance. We start to accept those things. So what are we accepting? Like, well, let's talk about the process though of how we follow the clues, because that one's not always obvious and it's not always easy, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God, my head explodes when I try to think of all the reasons why this might be happening. So mm-hmm. how do we focus? I know I have a process, but I'd like to hear first from you. Like, what do you do to kind of focus and follow the clues and try to find maybe a root cause?
That's a great question. And, you know, for me, it's taken a variety of different forms in my life. Sometimes I am able to see it all myself by just, you know, taking a metaphorical step back and looking at my life. But sometimes I can't see it because I don't have enough vision and peripheral vision and ability to see the big picture. So in that case, I look for help. I look for people I can trust to help me to see more of what's going on in my life. You know, and that has been very helpful to me. Now, I don't necessarily want to go to everybody in my life, but there are certain people who I know if I open up and I just share myself vulnerably with them, they will offer me unconditionally loving feedback and say, this is what I see. Maybe it's useful to you, maybe it isn't. That's the kind of feedback that I like.
Yeah, to ask for it, to ask for help. And yep. When you ask for it, you'll get it. And the right book will show up in your hands, or the right movie will show up, or the right person will show up, or the right teacher will show up. So ask for it and be ready to hear the answers and the input that you're getting, the feedback that you're getting.
Right.
There's let me know if this is true for you. On the bigger issues, right? The repetitive problems with relationship, or the repetitive problems with my work, or the repetitive problems with certain dynamics at you know, let's say a boss or a subordinate or something like that. On those bigger issues, I find myself that I can find usually a root, what I call the root cause, right? The root of the weed, back sometime in my past. It's not like a whole bunch of shit that has led to this, but there was one thing that it grew from, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when I'm looking and following the clues, I'm following the clues into my past. And I'm usually, if the big one, I'm following my clues into the past when I was younger, really younger, as a small, you know, somebody. Mm-hmm. Because those are usually the ones that grow and then turn into patterns and habits and repeat themselves. Do you find that true for yourself?
Absolutely, brother. Yeah. The past is where most of our initial suffering started, you know, because we came into a world, we came from a place of unconditional love into a place where love wasn't quite so unconditional. And so we learned fairly quickly, starting from a very young age, that if we didn't behave in a certain way, if we didn't act in a certain way, if we didn't accommodate other people's wants or needs, if we didn't do what we were told, if we weren't a good boy or a good girl, that the adults in our life would get upset. And then they would say or do things that would cause us pain. And from that, we would take on a belief that, wow, if I show up as who I really am, it's painful for me. I can't really do that. I have to do this in order to survive that. And that's the kind of thing that we create at a very young age. And we create it because, well, you know, we don't have highly evolved rational thinking capabilities yet. We haven't figured things out and haven't been able to look beyond the initial problem. And so we make our decisions with limited information. And the problem is those patterns that we create at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, they stay there. They stay there, and we continue acting them out even as we move into adulthood. And consequently, we start seeing the same things happening because those patterns no longer work for us when we're adults.
Yeah, so that was beautifully described and very clearly put, David. So thanks for sharing it that way. And that's, I yes, and I affirm everything you said is my personal experience too. And so there's really some good news in this, right? If we have some major stuff that's going on in life, if life just keeps getting us down, knocking us down, causing us problems, if, you know, life just seems to be going against us, if we sit back and reflect for a little bit on what parts of life or what is really knocking us down, and we don't point blame out there, but we take responsibility, and we start looking for some of the big nuggets, we'll probably, within a few minutes of thinking about it, giving it some sincere thinking about it, and some clarity, we'll come up with some ideas. The cool thing is that by just then trying to root cause one of those ideas, one of those potential problems or situations back into, or repetitive patterns back into childhood, by going back and revisiting that one, we can unlock and let go of a lot of drama that's happening in our lives. This is the resolving to solve things. So there's good news in this story too, David. It's not like we have to go fix 1 million things that we've screwed up. Yep. There's usually a couple big ones that when we find them, we'll be able to dig up the weed.
Well, and I wouldn't even call it screw ups, to be honest. You know, I would call it making a decision based on limited information. Really, that's how I would view it. And maybe it didn't give us the desired result. Maybe we got a result that you know, didn't work out the way we thought it would. But even so, that's just a learning opportunity, isn't it? It's just a way of saying, well, that didn't work. Maybe I can be like Edison and try a different way of building a light bulb and see what happens, you know? And how many times did he have to try before he got one that worked? I mean, thousands of times is what I've heard. Now, I'm not saying we have to do it thousands of times. What I am saying is, think of a little child who's learning how to walk. How many times does that child fall down while learning how to walk? I'd say hundreds, maybe thousands of times. And yet, how many people do we see in the world who can't walk? Not very many. So it means that we do have the ability, the inspiration, the motivation to learn something that's really important to us. And we can do that with anything. So if we've made a mistake, if we tried one step that didn't quite work, let's try a different step, see what happens. You know, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think you might have said this right at the beginning, that it's or if you didn't, I felt it, that you can make turn this into a game. It's like an adventure. Absolutely. It's like a puzzle that you get to solve. It's like, wow, cool, okay, well, I've got all this stuff going on in my life, and some of it's great, and some of it's still icky or doesn't feel good. It's kind of a fun adventure to kind of trace back and try to follow the clues, be a detective, and have fun following the clues back to finding the root cause if you can, or several of them, and don't be afraid of doing that, because when you find that root cause, the freedom you're going to feel is going to far outweigh whatever fear that's holding you back from trying it.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Root cause analysis. I think we had an episode about that not too long ago.
I think we have talked about root cause analysis, getting down to it. Yeah. So let's see. So we've identified situations, repetitive patterns, Groundhog Day kind of stuff that's happening in our lives. We become aware of it. We brought it into the light of our awareness, and now we've given a little bit of a technique on how to go and root cause it. What else? Follow the clues. What else? What else is there?
Well, you just mentioned Groundhog Day, and I just want to mention it. I mean, maybe not everybody has seen that movie, but it's a movie with Bill Murray and Andy McDowell, I think. Awesome movie. It's funny, it's touching, it's poignant, and really, it's talking about this exact issue that we're talking about today. You know, Bill Murray finds himself stuck in this cycle, and nobody else knows that he's in this cycle, but he does. And he realizes that each time he goes through it, he can do something different. So he's raising his awareness about his cycle. And as he tries something, he sees it doesn't work. He says, no problem, I can wake up tomorrow and start again. And he does exactly what you're talking about, Tommy. He starts off a little gruff and grumpy and, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And as he goes through more and more cycles, you can see him starting to play the game. As you said, playing the game. And that is a very, very key point. The moment you start playing the game, guess what? You start enjoying it. And if you're enjoying, then you are in joy. So why not be in joy no matter what's going on as you try to figure this out?
There's so much depth in that. Yeah, thanks for bringing Bill into this too, because you're right. Go watch the movie. I don't know. Find it. if you haven't watched it recently, I'm going to go watch it again because I'm watching it from a different lens, right? A different perspective now. And he's very grumpy in the beginning. He's like, why is this happening to me? Why are they doing this to me? Why is the world all, hell bent on messing up my day and making me do it again and again and again? So he's in that denial phase, right? Or not aware of it yet. It's just life is just kicking him in the gut all the time, is his opinion. And then he starts to wake up, and then he's like, oh. And then he starts to realize that if he changes his behavior a little bit, if he lets go of some of his old beliefs, if he doesn't cling on to his being right all the time, there are things that he starts to do that loosens his grip on these patterns, on these energies, on these behaviors that are making him feel miserable, that are making the outcome not what he wants it to be, that are making things go worse when he wants them to go better, right? So
yeah, and the thing that's cool about this movie is this keeps going until, right about the very end, when the thing that wakes him up in the morning is an alarm clock with a particular song. And on this one day, on the final day, he wakes up on his own, out of bed. And that's the day when he is totally free from this cycle. It's really quite a beautiful metaphor, this whole movie, for the cycle of karma that you've been talking about. And really about how we have so many opportunities to change our behaviors, to solve whatever problems we imagine we're having just by giving ourselves permission to try something different. And I think that's a powerful, powerful lesson. Do one thing different. What else can you do?
Funny, as you were saying that, I was thinking we're kind of taught to make a decision and stick to it, right? Does that sound familiar?
Oh yeah.
It's like you've made your bed, now sleep in it. You've made the decision, now stick to it. You committed to this, so do it. And it becomes a very rigid. I'm doing this with my hands because it's very rigid, and it doesn't enable you to change your mind. It doesn't leave openness to change who you are or the way you're approaching things. So what you're saying, David, is so true, in that we have to become aware that we can change our mind, and that not only can we, but we should, because our mind is stuck in these old patterns, right? Our mind was trained by some events that happened usually in our childhood, the big ones, and if we want to change ourselves, or we want to change our lives, or we want things to get better, we have to change our mind. And it's okay to change your mind. And so that's what Bill recognized, throughout the repetitive days. And he started changing his mind about things. He started changing his outlook about things. He started changing his view of the world. He started changing the way he was interacting in the world. He had to change. He had to change the way he was and not believe that the way he was right in the first place.
Yeah, it is definitely a wonderful story, and I think it reflects very much a truth for every single one of us, because all of us have our own little Groundhog Day. Maybe it's a bigger one too. I don't know. I'm not saying that everybody has a perfect life, but we all have the opportunity to become aware of the way we are creating our lives, and we have the opportunity to make changes within ourselves. No one can take that power away from any of us. All of us have that power. And you talk about being the change we want to see in the world. That was Mahatma Gandhi, I think, who said that. But it's a beautiful phrase and something that resonates deep within me. If I want to change something out there, I have to embrace it here inside first. And in order to embrace change, first I have to accept what is. And before I can accept what is, I have to be aware of what is. So that's the situation that we find ourselves in. Becoming aware, noticing the pattern, and then deciding, oh, this is a pattern, and I think there's probably some way for me to look at this and maybe do a little root cause analysis and find what's really causing this. Then I accept it as what is, because I can't change anything that I don't accept. Now, once I accept it, and maybe I'm going to add another word in here, Tommy, because it's really, really important. Forgiveness. I have in some way created what's happening in my life. I accept it, and I forgive myself for all of the things that I've done. Do that. Do that. Give yourself permission to have made mistakes, because you really didn't know what you were doing before. But once you've forgiven, then you can start implementing change. You can ask yourself, how can I change this in a way that will make my life and the lives of all the people I love better?
Beautifully spoken, and you just rattled off the first 3 chapters of the book we're working on, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Awareness, acceptance, and forgiveness. So yep. Nicely tied in there. So I want to we're coming near the end here, but we have a few minutes left. I want to dive a little bit into the deep end of the pool, because this is a trap we can get into, even when we're following the clues and we're trying to figure out what our behaviors are and what our patterns are. What we ultimately want to get to, and you said it earlier, David, is this place of unconditional love that we came from, and to kind of help have that in a human body, in a human form on this planet. And it is possible. And that love means that we're peaceful inside, that we're understanding inside, that we're tapped into wisdom. It comes with a lot of amazing, beautiful benefits. And a lot of times the underlying trap that I used to get stuck in is I would resist whatever it is I was looking for. I would resist whatever it is I was finding. I would doubt it. I would say, no, that's not it. This resistance word, which we talked about, resistance is futile, was exactly about this. So as you start to untie this, or look for these roots, look for yourself internally. Are you naturally resistant? Are you resisting change? Are you angry about things? I have a friend who she is a major resistor. She just is pissed off at the world and how stupid people are. That kind of resistance. So sometimes that's a hook too that you may find as you start to do root cause analysis, that some behavior, some patterns, some things set up a pattern of resistance inside of you, and which kind of counters and goes against the step number 2 there of acceptance.
I agree. Resistance is basically the polar opposite of acceptance, isn't it? And I think it was Neil Donald Walsh who says that which resists persists. In other words, when you fight it, whatever you're fighting is going to fight back, and it's going to hang around. It's going to stay. If you want to get rid of it, you have to simply accept what is. Now, accepting what is doesn't mean you necessarily agree with it, doesn't mean that you want to keep it in your life. It just means you are accepting that this is what is right now. That's all you're doing. Okay? So acceptance doesn't mean that I have to abide by whatever else somebody else is doing, or I don't have to, what's the word I want to say, approve of it or anything. It just simply says, okay, that's what's happening. That's what is right now. That's all. And that's really not that hard to do. I think all of us can do that fairly easily. If we find ourselves, however, saying, well, this is just absolute stupidity, I am not going to accept it in any way, shape, or form, well, guess what? We're creating a really tight physicalness in our body, and also in our mind and in our heart, which makes it really, really difficult for us to embrace the unconditional love that we seem to think that we want.
That was a great wrap up. I don't think I even want to add any more to that. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
So resolve to resolve. It means make up your mind to change your mind. There you go.
I like that. Yeah.
Resolve to resolve. Make up your mind to change your mind. And follow this guidance that Dave and I are laying out here. Bring things into your awareness, accept them, that they just are, that it's happened, it's the past, I can't change it, it's what it was, and is what it is right now. And then start working on forgiveness for what's gone on in the past, and then you can start working on moving and changing and going forward and making things better and lighter, and waking up without an alarm clock in the morning.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So thanks, brother. What you want to tell us about what's going on next week?
Next week, we've invited a special guest. His name is Hugh Dalconzo. He is a master coach from the Holistic Learning Center. A very amazing guy who has done some really, really cool things. He wrote a book called Self-Mastery, which I have found to be just chock full of amazing wisdom. And he has agreed to come on our show next week and share with us the idea of intentional transformation, which is very much in alignment with what you and I are talking about, Tommy. And so that's going to be our topic next week, intentional transformation. I hope you'll join us with Hugh D'Alconzo. Meanwhile, have a wonderful day full of resolution to resolve your old patterns. Bye.
Bye, all.